I'm really excited about today's topic. It touches on two areas where it seems that a lot of my thinking and work has been spending a lot of its time here, understanding how AI tools are being used in peer review. I have a really exciting international panel um, today, and so I will get to that momentarily. But first, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Just to remind you that the webinar is being recorded. I think you probably heard that as you entered. This recording, it will be shared after the meeting, and then you'll be able to access that recording, and we would be excited and happy for you to share that with your colleagues. And then also, we will not be taking questions after each session, but rather we will take your questions as the speakers speak in the question box, and we will hopefully have about a half hour at the end in order to have a discussion around those questions. So I really encourage you to put your questions in that question box as you think of them, and we will try to get to those at the end. So now let's take a look at who our panel is today. So first up will be Dr. Fabio DeBello. Fabio, he joined Wiley in March of 2021 as a customer service manager, currently focused on training Wiley accounts globally. He has over 20 years of experience in both sales manager and implementation manager for top publishers such as Thomson Scientific, Elsevier, and EBSCO. Fabio is passionate about helping researchers, physicians, librarians, and information specialists make the most out of their available subscribed content and improve research quality and outcomes. Fabio will be followed by Lucia. Lucia is the publications and peer review manager at About Science. She has over 30 years experience in STM publishing. Lucia's focus is on reviewing and strengthening policies and procedures, evaluating and deploying alternative solutions to improve efficiencies, liaising to journal editors, publishers, and partners. Her experience in scientific publishing makes her very attentive to editors and publishing needs, offering viable solutions to successfully publish new content. She is in charge of the peer review process of About Science and at in their journal portfolio. And then bringing us home will be Sven Fund, Managing Director at Reviewer Credits. He is also Senior Director of Knowledge Unlatched, which is part of Wiley since December 2021. He works at OABL, which is an open access management software solution that empowers institutions with tools to unify publisher workflows and streamline management operations. And so from there, I am going to now hand it over to Fabio. So I'm going to hit stop share. Oh,
Okay, so you should be able to now see my first slide. Can you confirm that you're seeing the first slide?
Yes, I can see the first. Yeah.
Fantastic. So welcome, everybody. It's such an exciting and thrilling opportunity to have such a wide audience, a global audience coming from, people coming from all over the world. So thank you so much for, giving me this opportunity to talk to you today about exploring how AI is being harnessed to streamline and enhance the peer review process in scientific, technical, and medical publishing. So specifically, I'll be focusing on these three pivotal stages: the initial manuscript submission, the selection of peer reviewers, and the assessment and validation of the manuscript's content. At each of these stages, I'll try to highlight current AI applications, illustrate their impact, and discuss both opportunities and limitations as we move toward a more efficient and intelligent publishing ecosystem. So let's start with asking ourselves, why bring AI into peer review? Well, let me give you just a short answer. Scale and strain, scale and strain. Well, scientific publishing is growing fast. Well, you know probably for sure that between 2016 and 2022, the total number of indexed publications in Scopus and Web of Science has increased by circa 50%. So 50% over 6 years, corresponding to a compound annual growth rate of about 5.6%. Yet the reviewer pool hasn't kept up. Just 20% of researchers do most of the reviews, according to Nature, leading to overload fatigue and slower turnaround. Editors face a similar crunch. Each submission must be checked for scope fit, formatting, ethics, plagiarism, a heavy burden when thousands and thousands of papers pour in. Mistakes happen. Inconsistencies arise between editors. And doing it all manually is no longer sustainable. So this is where AI steps in, not to replace, but to support. By automating repetitive checks and surfacing key issues, AI helps focus human effort where it matters most. What is the result? The expected result: faster processing, fewer errors, and more consistent quality control. So now let's see how this begins with AI-powered manuscript screening. Well, as you all know, the first phase of peer review is manuscript screening, essentially a quality control filter. Here, AI acts like an assistant editor, running a series of automated checks to save time and ensure standards. So what are the key functions that AI can do? Well, scope alignment. AI uses natural language processing to assess the manuscript's title, abstracts, and keywords, checking if it's within the journal scope. Some systems, like our systems as Wiley, even suggest better fit journals, preventing wasted review cycles. Then we have the formatting and compliance. AI tools, let me give you an example, Penelope.ai. This is something that I've been using. Instantly verifies adherence to author guidelines, detecting missing elements like ethical statements or formatting issues in citations. Then we also have the area of language quality. So AI-based writing evaluators flag unreadable English and suggest improvements before peer review takes place. And that's especially useful for non-native submissions. And then finally, the plagiarism detection and the ethics and integrity checks. Tools like Authenticate compare the text against massive databases to identify copied or excessively reused content, and they generate similarly reports that are really, really useful for editors. And with regard to ethics and integrity checks, AI now detects AI-generated text, fake citations, image manipulations, and verifies author identity via ORCID. Again, the objective here is to raise early flags on potential misconduct. In short, AI-driven screening filters out unsuitable manuscripts early, ensuring that only submissions that meet baseline quality and ethical standards proceed to reviewers. Well, once a manuscript passes the initial screening, the next hurdle is identifying qualified, unbiased reviewers. Traditionally, this is a manual and time-consuming task. You probably know that better than me. This is now also being optimized by AI in several ways. Let's just see which ways this is being optimized. So, first of all, expertise matching. AI parses the manuscript's content and references, semantically matches it to a massive, to massive databases. For instance, Profi indexes over 174 million papers and suggests researchers who have published in closely related areas, surfacing experts beyond the traditional editors network. Then we also have what we call the built-in recommenders. So platforms like ScholarOne, Editorial Manager, integrate AI tools that rank reviewers based on publication history, citation links, and past review activity. This can cut reviewer funding time by over 70%, offering ranked shortlist in a matter of seconds. Another interesting thing is detecting conflict of interest. AI automatically flags co-authorships, shared affiliations, advisor-advisee ties using what we call relational analysis. And this really helps editor ensure impartiality without manual vetting. One more thing. Have you thought about diversity and load balancing? Because basically AI can promote inclusion by identifying suitable early career researchers and global contributors who might be overlooked, helping reduce reviewer fatigue and broaden the participation. In essence, AI transforms reviewer selection into a faster, fairer, and more data-informed process, while keeping editorial judgment firmly in control. Well, at the core of peer review lies evaluating the quality of the science, right? While, obviously AI can't judge novelty or interpret data like a human being, but it's very good at, it excels at auditing key components that ensure rigor and transparency. Tools like Stat Reviewer, probably you have used it before. Well, these are formidable tools that scan methods, results sections, flagging missing data, like for instance, hey, where are the p-values? Sample size rationales that are not good, inappropriate tests, or too perfect numbers. So basically, these tools are integrated into platforms like Editorial Manager. They act as tireless statistical auditors. Then we come about the reproducibility, the size score. So the AI checks if authors report, key rigor criteria, like, randomization, blinding, reagent identifiers, and basically scores methodological transparency. And this helps journal uphold standards and encourages better reporting from the outset. Now let's talk about citation and reference integrity. And AI is really good at validating references by cross-ref, detects fake or irrelevant citations, and flags citation manipulation or excessive self-citations. Tools like Cite.ai even assess whether a cited paper supports or contradicts the claim. Then we have image analysis. Now, there are tools that detect duplicated, manipulated, or doctored images, such as, photoshopped Western blots or reduced microscopy figures. That's a growing concern in biomedical publishing. And we have holistic review. Frontiers AIRA systems, runs over 20 checks, language, figures, stats, COI, plagiarism, and this offers transparent reports to editors, reviewers, and authors alike. It doesn't decide, but ensures all parties see potential red flags. So in sum, AI acts as an intelligent pre-review filter, ensuring the submission is statistically sound, ethically transparent, and structurally complete, freeing human reviewers to focus on deeper scientific judgment. Now, as you know, unlike earlier AI tools that just check or match, large language models like ChatGPT, Gemini, and other tools generate text, and this raises new possibilities in peer review. Think about drafting summaries and reviews. Large language models can process a manuscript and generate summaries, highlight methodological flaws, or suggest review questions. This really helps reviewers brainstorm or digest long or even unfamiliar papers. Then we have the review support, the reviewer support. Some reviewers use, ChatGPT or Gemini to rephrase comments, clarify summaries, or structure feedback, especially valuable for non-native English speakers or for early career reviewers seeking guidance. Now, a 2024 study of top AI conferences found out that 17% of review text showed sign of AI generation, suggesting that large language models are already being used informally, even in expert communities. Obviously, the benefits are quite clear. If used responsibly, large language models can save up time, improve clarity, and democratize access to high-quality peer review practices, helping junior or overburdened reviewers without replacing their judgment. But there are some risks. Large language model can hallucinate flaws or references, fabricate critiques, or mislead if overtrusted. There are also issues of transparency. Should AI use be disclosed? Confidentiality and authorship integrity. Now, the guidelines from COPE and journals now urge reviewers to use AI only for writing assistance, not evaluation, and to notify editors if AI tools were used. In some, large language models are promising, in my opinion, of course, are promising, but must remain assistants, not arbiters. Peer review depends on human judgment, and AI should only augment, never replace expert critical thinking. Let's just recap now, okay? I'm just coming to an end. The key benefits. What are the key benefits of AI in peer review? First of all, speed, as I said before, to drastically shortens turnaround times by automating formatting checks, reviewer matching, and desk reject decisions. And this reduces delays and accelerate initial editorial workflows. Then we have the efficiency and workload relief. The fact that AI handles routine tasks like metadata extraction, reminders, reference checks, freeing editors and reviewers to focus on judgment and content, helping reduce burnout in overstretched editorial teams. Then we have consistency and fairness. AI applies uniform standards across all submissions, and this improves objectivity, reduces human variability, and also helps supporting bias mitigation by evaluating manuscripts impartially. It enhances quality control because automated checks catch issues early, reducing preventable retractions and raising the baseline, the baseline quality of submission. Reviewer diversity and load balance. We talked about this. AI expands the reviewer pools, promotes inclusion of early career researchers, and prevents overloading a small elite, improving reviewer equity and review quality. And then, the most important, scalability. As submission volume surge, AI empowers editorial teams to scale operations without proportional increases in staff, functioning as a powerful force multiplier, a force multiplier for journals. And these gains are significant, but they come with caveats. Let's now see the limitations and ethical challenges of using AI in peer review. First of all, a responsible AI integration. While AI brings major gains to peer review, careful oversight is essential. In my opinion, the key challenges are, first of all, AI is a tool, not a decision maker. Editors must review all AI flags and apply human judgment. Blind trust in AI can be dangerous, can lead to catastrophic errors. Then we have accuracy and bias. AI systems can misjudge grammar, miss subtle misconduct, or misclassify novel interdisciplinary work. Their performance depends on training data and algorithms. Transparency and ongoing calibration are vital. Editors should see why something was flagged. So the explainability and understandability of the red flags is imperative, and that's still a problem. Then we have ethical and policy issues. Now, the question is, should reviewers disclose AI use? Should authors be told their submission was AI screened? COPE and others are issuing guidance. Use AI to assist, not to replace, and disclose its role to maintain trust and accountability. Then we have the problem of integration and training barriers. Well, deploying AI tools requires system integration, editor training, and iterative feedback. Licensing costs and technical complexity can pose hurdles, especially for small journals. And then the community acceptance. Cultural resistance is natural. Reviewers may fear being replaced. Authors may distrust AI-assisted decisions. Transparent communication and positive outcomes are key to building acceptance. So if you ask me, how do I see the future outlook? Well, I see a synergy between human and AI. As AI becomes more capable, a hybrid model is likely to prevail. So AI handles scalable repetitive tasks. Humans provide insight, nuance, and final judgment. The partnership model ensures both efficiency and trustworthiness. And that said, well, I'd like to thank you so much for your attention, and I hope there's going to be questions and, of course, a discussion. Thank you so much for your attention. And Tony, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Fabio. That was a great introduction to the topic, and we got a bunch of really great questions that we'll talk about some of that at the end. And so I just want to remind everybody to please put your questions in the Q&A box. Not the chat is not on. It's just the Q&A where we want to receive your questions. So I'm going to now turn it over to Lucia. Lucia, I'm going to bring your
Excellent.
slide.
Thank you.
And let me just Fabio, I think you can stop sharing.
I stopped.
Okay.
I'm no longer sharing. Yeah.
And so Lucia, just let me know when you want me to change.
Yeah, I just thank you very much for your assistance, Tony. And hello, everyone. And thank you very much for joining in such a huge number this session. I think it's a great topic to face, a great topic to discuss. And Fabio's introduction was excellent. I was really honored to be on this webinar, and I was also scared because it's a topic that none of us really knows well. But we did our part, and I hope that what we found and what we experienced is of use to other people. The next slide, please. And just a quick introduction about ourselves, but you can see it on screen. Tony's introduced me before. There is nothing else to say. And the next slide, please, Tony. Like Fabio introduced us, I like also to bring a few numbers on the peer review process, because it's impossible to understand how great the topic of peer review in scientific publishing is. These are data from the Pablon's report from 2018, and it's the only one so detailed that I could find. So if there is any others out, I've missed it, and I apologize. But according to this report, if we project it on the 2024 data, I calculated that we would have had to invite over 60 million reviewers, to be able to perform the peer review on the articles that Web of Science eventually listed as published, which is a huge number. So why are we actually thinking about AI in the peer review process at all? Why is this something that we are so keen on? Well, next slide, please. Okay, so first of all, I'd like maybe to try and identify what Kolpe intends by AI as engineering intelligent systems, machines, and software that can mimic human intelligence and behavior, providing valid recommendations that a human editor could have achieved using a larger knowledge base on a broader scale. And I would also add quicker, because I think a machine is always going to be quicker than a human person validating data. Next slide, please. But what do reviewers actually think about introducing AI to the peer review process? The only answer or the only question referring to this topic I found in an IOP publishing State of Peer Review report from last year, where there was one question addressing reviewers on the introduction of the Gen AI tools in the peer review process. Quite amazingly, but expectedly, there was a very mixed, very balanced reply of about a third of each respondent being negative, positive, or neutral. But some comments that were actually introduced in this report was very keen, like AI is evil, burn it with fire, which I thought was really funny. But they all sort of agreed that it is okay to consider AI in peer review as long as it's teamed with a human, which is a good starting point. But what do we actually do ourselves to find out about this? Well, we played a little bit. Next slide, please, Tony. We played a little bit with what is available out there for free. We actually played because we decided to involve some of our editors who had the time and the willingness to play with us. We chose 2 completed papers, so where we had a good peer review report from our own human reviewers, and we ran the papers through these 4 tools that you see on the screen: ChatGPT Peer Reviewer, Peer Review Collaborator GPT, AutoExpert Academic Improved, and Microsoft 365 Copilot. I would like to add, I didn't know any of these tools, and I've never really even considered trying these tools for examining a paper for a peer review evaluation. It was a great exercise, which probably I wouldn't have done unless there was this webinar. But what did our editors actually come up with? What did they share with us at the end of the process? Next slide, please, Tony. Okay, we tried to grid out using stars what they thought about these tools, and it is really impossible at today's stage to see or to decide which one of the tools works better than the others. But the general feeling was that ChatGPT, and I like the comment, well, it seems to have understood what the paper is about. So I thought that was a great comment, whilst other tools provided comments, but very, very generalized. So they could have been applied to any paper of any topic out there. So they were not very focused. In the next slide, please, I have collected, next slide, okay, some of the comments that were actually put into a report by one of our editors. Red box is the comment that we were totally out of place, and the green ones was a comment that were really positive for this exercise. The general comment of our editors was that an AI tool could be a great help, but the report generated would still need to be interpreted by a human expert. As you can see in the red box, some of the comments are very controversial, and you could not ever rely on those comments to make a decision. However, a standardized report, provided it reaches a level of quality to ensure reliability, would be an excellent support to both editors and reviewers. Statistical analysis, methods, I leave out language and other parts that are already part of the standard check. So I think this is a good starting point to decide what we want to practice with in the future. Next slide, please. Fabio has already introduced us to some of the tools that are already a reality in our editorial workflow. So some of them are listed here in green flag. Some others are not yet in use, and maybe they are just dream, or maybe they're available only to some of us publishers and not to all of us. So what we dream is really assigning some of the boring tasks to a tool. So we don't want to do them. We want a tool to do it, and possibly without us knowing about it, and just get the result back in a nice and tidy way, always consistent across all the papers, across all our journals. That would be a dream. But we like to dream even bigger. After this exercise with AI, how about using AI to relieve the editorial office of not only finding reviewer and matching reviewers, but actually in doing the comment on the papers? Because getting a suggestion for reviewers is not an insurance that you will have a comment on that from that person. So obviously we are still lacking the comment on the paper. What if we had a magic tool that can do it for us? So this is really a wish, but it's not that easy. So this is a dream. We all like to talk big and think big, but the reality is very different. So next slide, please. Because it's not enough to just judge what we would like, but let's see what the main gatekeepers say on the use of AI in peer review. And I've reviewed the policies and documents and recommendations from these bodies. You all know them because they're part of our daily life. And in the next slide, Tony, please. I've highlighted excerpts of all their comments, and I will not read them out because they're out on a slide. And I'm sure that most of us are familiar and have already reviewed the policies from IASE or COPE, for example. But some of these are very relevant for us, like decisions cannot be made by AI alone. Like AI cannot be used to generate review reports, which is something that Fabio mentioned before. Next slide, please. Thank you. Or, whether we are large or small, we must ensure confidentiality. So this is a very firm point for us. So all these bodies have similar views. They have common views, and there is not an easy exercise to combine all of them in our own journal policies. But in the next slide, I thought it would be nice to just try and make a grid it out a bit on what we actually still have to look for before we even think about AI, because it's fine to use AI to support human procedure, as long as we disclose transparently how we use it, and as long as we can ensure confidentiality. With the advent of AI, publishers must provide training and tools that can be trusted by the people that use it for us, provided nobody relies on AI decisions alone, at least today. Okay? So next slide, because this is all very nice, but what are we left with? Well, it leaves us with a huge to-do list, in my opinion, because before we can even consider to hand out or encourage our reviewers and editors to use AI in the peer review process, we have to actually work very carefully with the guidelines and ensure that our policies cover all the points that are going to be mandatory for us to follow if we do not want to lose the important role of guardians of quality for science. It's a big word, I don't know how else to say it, but we are entrusted with this important step, which is to validate that whatever comes up to us is checked before it goes out to other people, and before it goes out and can be replicated by other researchers. So editors will be once more our best partners in discussing the level of interactions which our journals are ready to face, and not only to decide how to use AI because it's so nice. Before we decide to embrace AI at large with the enthusiasm which comes to us naturally at this point in life, because it's exciting to see, there are some very important and delicate questions which we must never forget, in my view, and they are outlined in the next slide. Please. Next slide, Tony. Okay, so these are just random questions that came up whilst we played with AI in our 2 papers, and it's only 2 papers. What should journals tell authors and reviewers about AI? What are we prepared to accept? What if someone disagrees with an AI-made decision? Well, how does AI compare to a paid peer review model? Can we trust AI? How can we know if a reviewer has used AI? How transparent do we want to be with regards to AI? Should we allow reviewers to use AI or add AI as an additional reviewer? These are all, a lot of questions that to me are going to be needed to be answered before anything can be taken further with AI and peer review in a systematic way. But I'm sure we are in the right direction just by discussing it. To conclude, we do love AI. We love what it can do for us today and what we like to imagine or dream that it can do for us in the future. But let's not forget that the important role of gatekeeper for quality research, which is demanded to us, to our editors, and to our reviewers. And this concludes my presentation. Next slide, Tony. It's a big thank you to all of you that have listened to me and that are going to share comments and views, and these are all the documents of reference which I took into my presentation, so I hope you appreciate it. Thank you again for inviting us to present on this topic, and if that's okay, Tony, I have to handle the floor to Sven.
Okay, thank you very much, Lucia. Great presentation, as you can see from the clapping hands. Thanks a lot. And good evening, morning, and afternoon, everybody. I would like to probably add a little bit of component to the conversation that my colleagues have started so brilliantly by not only discussing AI in peer review primarily or with a focus on the publisher's workflow and perspective, but really from a usefulness to science and to reviewers, which I think is probably in this early stage of AI as a technology and also AI as a component in our workflows, a relatively new view. So keep in mind while I present, the behavioral dimension, please. Imagine you ask a taxi driver who lives off taxi driving whether she or he is in favor of autonomous vehicles. And imagine what the answer will be. So looking at reviewers right now, where do we all agree, I think, that tools can be super helpful? I think we agree, and that's the core hypothesis of the three of us that you have seen already, that we need AI tools to master the mess out there around peer review. And the mess has different dimensions, I would say. First of all, there is work that was never meant for human brains. And that is the 8.5% of manuscripts submitted to IOP in this example that were rejected even before peer review due to ethical concerns. There is the volume that Fabio mentioned. There is clunky publisher systems and submission systems, and there's ever more sophisticated fraud out there. So obviously a lot of stuff that technology can work on, and frankly can work much better on, and I think Lucia has pointed that out, and Fabio did. It can work better on it than any human being can, or at least wants to work on it. What has happened from a publisher's perspective over the last, let's say 2.5 years since the beginning of 2023, when for many of us, AI suddenly became a topic. I remember being here in Berlin at the Academic Publishing in Europe conference, and suddenly AI was a topic. When you ask publishers today, and vendors particularly, when did you start working with the elements that we now call AI? That probably goes back already to 2017, 18, something like that. So initially, publishers were challenged, and I saw a lot of conversations here where publishers made fun of hallucinations of AI systems. I think we have learned quite fast how fast these systems can improve, and I guess those jokes are less and less funny these days. Today, I think most publishers see AI as a helpful tool. The ones that are reporting their numbers officially at the that are listed at the stock exchange can demonstrate how much money they are actually making of AI systems that need to be trained with their content. But I think also, and I'll show you that on the next slide, a lot of information is creeping, a lot of tools are creeping into our workflows. And as David Warlock has already pointed out, AI has proven to not be a replacement for authors, editors, and librarians, at least not yet, but it has complemented how we work in academic publishing in some fields. Let's move on to the next topic, because I don't want to repeat what my colleagues have already said. Here's a great slide from Wiley colleagues. You just see, without probably identifying each and every slide, I'm happy to share, as everybody did, the slides later on. There's a myriad of systems, features, solutions, programs out there that intend to help publishers, reviewers, authors, whomever, with artificial intelligence in the publishing workflow. I would say there is so much there that you need an own application to identify which system helps you where best. So this is really something where I think the industry has to look at carefully, because this is a bit critical that everybody seems they are innovating themselves for each and every feature. Probably collaboration and more smartness in systems is the better way to work. And if I can quickly say what we are trying to do at Reviewer Credits, we try to understand the researcher in their persona as a reviewer with multiple dimensions. And one very strong dimension is the behavioral dimension that I mentioned earlier. We believe it's really important to see the reviewer and the work she or he is doing for the reviewing process as a critical contribution, as a human supervision of a system of different depths and intensities. But at the same time, we believe, and we believed already before AI, the founders believed already before AI, that it is important to make peer review more transparent by showing the actors behind it as well. It does not mean that we don't believe in double-blind peer review processes, but we think that the sheer amount of work that goes into peer review, we have to show on a reviewer's resume every week, every month, every year, because it is significant for the scientific enterprise as a whole. And we have all done a pretty poor job, I would say, over the last decades in recognizing that in a tangible way and not just saying it. And Lucia has quoted the numbers. It's a bit shocking to see how much is happening there. We have asked reviewers how they work with peer review, with AI tools, sorry, in the peer review process. And what kind of system they would be happy to work with. And you can see that a majority, a large number of them is pretty happy to try out an assistant, an expert assistant, an aid to expert peer review. So not replacing them. 57% say that. 14% believe in a check before the peer review, and 29% say that this is not for them and they don't want to work at all with review assistants. The same numbers are, by the way, reflected, which I will show you later, or comparable numbers by a large Nature review of 5,000 reviewers, which you might have seen around peer review assistance. So in my view, this is a good sign because it shows that researchers are willing to experiment with the new technology, knowing that it is not perfect. But you know what? Peer review wasn't perfect before. So we got to this point and we got to this inflection where we need more technology because the old peer review is not perfect and we shouldn't glorify it, but we should really see it as a launchpad for a better future in reviewing. Kudos to Catherine and Gareth on my team who have done a great job in looking at different AI tools for peer review. I hope this is for all of you food for thought. So here is a list where you can see the existing peer review tools that we have identified. I am sure as we speak, there are 2 or 3 more. So nobody should please be angry at me if I didn't mention it, but start with these, have a look, and everybody who finds something else, please report it to us. We are happy to include it and to give everybody an overview. Here's the second page of it. You see there is a lot of activity around it simply because the case is so compelling to use assistance in the process from a reviewer's perspective, again, and not just from a publisher's perspective. I want to come to an end because I want to give you guys as much opportunity as possible to ask questions, to discuss. But here's the empirical overview that I mentioned earlier. This is a large report commissioned by Nature. You see the DOI on the bottom. Please have a look. But you see that 78% of people, of researchers, say that they have not been trying to work with AI at all. And I think in order to have an educated conversation, we should all try to bring that number down, everybody who works in publishing, as significantly as we can over the next 6 to 12 months, because only then we can really have a fact-based discussion and not just a feeling discussion. 22% of researchers have tried already or would try. And again, in changing behavior, we have seen that in academic publishing and in the process of digitization over the last 30 years or so, a lot. I'm just mentioning ebooks, I'm mentioning open access as business models. We will see that with the new generation coming in, with new reviewers joining the pool, it will be more and more normal to work with certain pools. I think we are all well advised to start working with these tools now, experimenting with these tools now, taking responsibility for the results, and hence make the peer review process less clunky and less painful for researchers. Our goal within review credits would be as a wish scenario that you could reduce peer review times by 50%. And I think that would be a very, very admirable number for everybody in academic publishing. With that, Tony, I would like to hand over before my 15 or 20 minutes because I think the discussion is of the essence and not so much the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sven. Thank you. Thank you, Lucia. Thank you, Fabio. A lot of food for thought. We have a bunch of questions and discussion points. I think so. If we can get everybody on screen, that's great. So this is a discussion, so it's something that we can go through some of the questions, but this should definitely be an opportunity for you to address your interest and your concerns, fellow panelists. One of the major issues that seems to have come up in some of the discussion points is this idea of the reviewer or anybody taking the author's manuscript and uploading it into a generative AI tool, and there are various issues around that, one being the ethics around that, another being the idea that this information is now being added into a corpus for that tool. Maybe each of you can talk a little bit about what your thoughts are around that topic in particular. So, Fabio, you don't have your microphone on, so we'll go to you first.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, this is absolutely a crucial element for protecting the copyright of the researchers who are going to publish a manuscript. Obviously, when you upload anything into any large language model, you have no guarantee that this content is not going to be used for any purpose that might be out of your control. So I don't have a definitive answer. I think that large language models producer have two kind of learning path. There is an individual learning algorithm that allows ChatGPT or Gemini to learn everything about you. So it learns to know you through the interaction that you have with the large language model. This is basically, this is done to maximize the user experience, maximize the level of the quality of the output that matches, aligns with your needs, your preferences. So we call it local instance learning. And the global large language model should not learn from local instances. So everything that you put into ChatGPT should not be used as a training corpora. Okay, the centralized training will be centrally controlled, and the content will be centrally determined. So it's not that the system learns by the things that we actually upload. Otherwise, we would have a mess of anarchy. But I understand the problem that when you upload any document, any sensitive information, this information gets stored into your account on ChatGPT. And even if it's not released on ChatGPT globally, it will still sit there. So I don't know whether there's going to be a solution to that. But to my understanding, these are the two learning directions that occur on large language models.
I would agree. And I think, to me, frankly, Fabio, I want to push it a little bit further. I think information sovereignty in a digital world is a very important element, right, which we are all interested in. But frankly, is the uploading of a ready written manuscript into a large language model the only intervention point where you have to worry about information sovereignty? I don't think so. I hear there is a lot of rumors that in the past, different large language model providers, different publishers, different vendors have trained certain machine learning models with submitted manuscripts with other material. I don't know whether that is true or not, but I'm just trying to say, is the benefit higher than the risk, or is the risk higher than the benefit? I'm completely in the unknown about this, but I think it should probably not block us from doing things that have a high percentage of a benefit compared to a certain risk component. Because what is the difference between a manuscript that I submit today and that is being published by About Science or by Wiley in 3 weeks from now in open access? Not so much is happening in between that really impacts the sovereignty dramatically. That is probably true for rejected papers, for fraudulent papers, and so on. But in my mind, we shouldn't make the issue bigger than it is, and I'm not sure whether academic publishing is exactly the right place to solve the issue.
I agree with you.
I think I just is one of the biggest sore points with the use of AI, because you have to release documents that have been given to you in confidentiality. For us publishers, we have to sort of look after it. The 2 documents that I used for our test were published articles, so they were not, they were already out in the open, but it is one of the critical points to solve before anything further can be done, probably with AI on new submissions.
You're muted, Tony.
I was just wondering about disclosure. Is it something that potentially you could ask the authors if they don't mind having that kind of process take place? Is that anything that anybody has considered?
I mean, from my perspective, I think on both sides, on the publisher side or whoever it is, vendor side, using AI systems, and also from the reviewer side or author side using AI systems, I think this is also a heightened a time and era of heightened sensitivity, right? So I think it makes sense to disclose it and to be very open about it, what both publishers and reviewers do. But frankly, both a publisher and a reviewer stand for me with their name for what they are doing. So if a reviewer uses an AI tool and it prompts wrong results, that is the reviewer's problem, in my view. That doesn't mean that he or she can say, that was technology, I'm not involved here. And I think, frankly, if you look at how many people really understand the algorithm of a Google search, I guess not so many on this call, we shouldn't expect like miracles from reviewers using AI tools. But I think being transparent and open about it has always been the best tool, remedy in academic publishing. There's nothing to hide if you are an ethical researcher, reviewer, and publisher, right? Because there is not so many secrets around what we do in general.
If I can say, I think some organizations evaluate publishers also for the peer review process that they take care of. So I wonder what, I haven't looked into it, I'll be honest, but I wonder what these organizations are going to say if you disclose that one of your reviewers is AI, or that you support your reviewers using an AI evaluation. I wonder how they would feel towards indexing you or not indexing you. I think this is not just up to publishers, for example, to decide how transparent you want to be, by how you are actually accepted by the indexing organization that you apply to have standard for your journals. I quite like the idea of disclosing the use of AI right on and ask authors, we will do this in our review process. We upload a preliminary peer review report for our reviewers to assist them. Are you in agreement or are you not in agreement? But then I'm not sure what would happen at the other end, once our journals are sort of evaluated for admission or not admission in an index. So that is an interesting point.
Yeah.
So looking at this from sort of more of an ideal as an ideal, what would be the kind of tool that you would imagine would be really useful to the reviewer, as for the reviewer to use, something that would not only be useful to the reviewer, but might be able to address some of the concerns that people have. If you could imagine a tool, any thoughts around that?
Can I answer this maybe? I would imagine, I would really like to like we do a similarity check, that you run your manuscript when it comes in for relevance, but this already happens, and also to ensure that the statistical methods used are sound, so that there is no gray areas of for example, how you determine the group of patients you have used or excluded. It's basic things, so that when the reviewer receives it, maybe it just has one part of the big job done, and they have to concentrate on something else. For example, the references. A lot of reviewers say, oh, make sure the references are all written correctly in the journal standard. We don't need that. We do that job anyway. So they spend a lot of time in looking through the references and say, oh, they're not formatted as you like them. But we know that we correct them in any case. So maybe they could concentrate on specific area of the evaluation, which is the critical area, the content, not so much the form. So this would be probably our good use of a system. And we would like a tool that assists reviewers, not that replaces them, because I still believe that the human mind and evaluation is irreplaceable. I still don't believe that AI can judge how a research has produced results. Not yet.
What I would really find interesting is carving out, as you say, along those lines, Lucia, certain things like citations, for example. So are the citations properly representing what has been written in the article that is being cited, right? That is a huge minefield, as everybody knows. And in present peer review, nobody can really tell me that somebody goes through an article and reads 40 supporting paper out of the 60 cited, because 20 she or he already knows and the other 40 are being read. Imagine we would agree in the writing tools that are existing that if an author submits an article and has run certain tests on an AI system which is authorized for this, this would be a great help for publishers, and it would be good for the author, because the publication process would be faster. It would be less pain for the reviewer. In brackets, they have never looked at it anyhow. So I think it's a full gain for the whole system, and it makes perfect sense to do that. And I can imagine, I mean, next to the style guides and so on, isn't that a painful thing that we as an industry do to reviewers, that they have to relearn a review process with more or less every journal that they submit to? Like review, submit, whatever. I mean, that's simply a 1980s problem, which I think we shouldn't confront people with anymore. And I think their technology can really help at no more cost than we have today. It is a change in behavior, but it is not a cost driver that publishing is so concerned about.
Well, just to go along the lines, to my experience, I find the software that we use, at Wiley, in the submission, we have various software AI tools that we employ during the submission, and tools that extract metadata automatically, suggest appropriate journals based on content. We screen manuscripts for potential integrity issues, like plagiarism, mock references, paper mill, and even generative AI tools. Now we have over 300 journals It started as a pilot on wireless research exchange platform, and that's working pretty well. It's really useful for our reviewers, and also the image integrity is also, we started as a pilot in April of 2020, and we now have 473 journals that use wireless image screening service. And this really are really useful because it flags duplications, placing, manipulation, and editors basically receive alerts, automatic alerts. And I would think that understanding, as Sven was mentioning before, the relevancy of the citations. The majority of mistakes occur in the references section. Inadequate citing is considered to be bad behavior, unethical behavior. And to have a system, and we're working on that automatically screens all the references. And as I mentioned in my presentation, there are tools that not even understand whether a citation is relevant, but also understands whether a citation supports or is against your claim. This is really great help for the heavy load of the workload of the reviewer. And then, of course, when it comes to the merit of the scientific content, we don't have AGI yet, so the human judgment is irreplaceable. But at least AI can take the burden out of the reviewer for all these labor-intensive activities that can be automated by a machine.
Yeah, and at the same time, what I think is really important, to your point, probably as an afterthought, Fabio, that we start in the industry to move away from just looking at publishers' processes and how we can streamline them. I think it's completely legitimate if you are a commercial player in a field to do that, right? But beyond that, why don't we create KPIs that show us how we can make reviewers happier with the process, because they are the rare resource here, right? It is not just about how long is the time to publication and so on, but I think it is also super important to really say, do we have the tools in place that we can legitimately reduce the peer review time from 6 hours per article or something like that to 3 hours? That would be so massive for so many people. That would be so good for science, just because these people would do research instead of reviewing. And if we then add on, which is, I have to admit my bias here, if we then can make it also visible that these people have done so much work and have contributed their knowledge, wisdom, experience, whatever it is, to the process, I think that is super important. And that is in the conversation I'm seeing in publishing right now, a risk that we leave it to technical people, and that the business side of things, like, hang on, even though we don't pay reviewers, let's make sure that we make the burden on their shoulders as light as possible. I think that's super important. And I think that there are quite a number of initiatives out there that deserve much more visibility by different publishers, journals, organizations, and so on.
Hi, Sven. This is a really nice point, and I agree with you, because we can take care of the efficiency once an article has been accepted. But the time with the reviewers and with the editors is the longest time in the whole process. We can be quick publishing. We've learned how to be quick publishing. We have good suppliers, we have good channels, but we can't force people to evaluate a paper, to sit down for 5 hours on average and decide whether that's merit, it can be published or not, or whether it should be rejected. And it's a lot to be asking reviewers. And I do like the suggestion of sort of maybe standardizing how they should reply to a journal, how they should submit maybe a review, so that it's easier for them to step from one journal to the next. They don't work just for us. They work for a lot,
Yeah, exactly.
So I agree the fact that we should really think reviewers first at this point in time, rather than time first. So that is probably a good pointer.
Imagine you could say that every review you do for about science is X%, 50% more efficient than for other publishers because you get proper support. That would be cool, huh?
So on that topic, there was a question about is there any research or any statistics around the efficiency gains with AI? So I don't know if any of you have anything to cite or any thoughts around that.
I think that's a little bit of a tough question because we are not really using it. So how can we judge efficiency? We can't trust it. So I imagine running the report would be very quick, 10 minutes at the most. But then how long would it take you to get someone to look at the report that somebody else produced? No, I think it needs still a bit of work, but there is potential.
Tony, it is my first question to every system that I look at, to the people who present it and are proud of their technology. I think, as you say, Lucia, there's probably, I mean, the technical review by an AI system takes 3 minutes, right? Maybe 5. And that's it. And then you have to go through it. So if you compare that to a human-only peer review, which takes between 5, 6, 7 hours, depending on the complexity, I think that is a huge efficiency gain, and that's why I wouldn't go so far. So I know of systems that have taken out the direct review and submit your report link because they wanted to kind of artificially slow down the process so that people would not review 15 articles in half an hour or something like that. But I think that's exactly the thing, right? The convention. How do we make sure that this happens in a sensible way? And maybe you can really do the review of an article in an hour, which we couldn't do before. And imagine with the numbers that Lucia quoted from Pablons, which indeed I think are the only ones out there. A great report. But if you see that, that would be a shocking effect on the whole ecosystem and would be super helpful. I think reviewers would still take more time than they can technically because many really want, from our knowledge, from reviewer credits knowledge, want to understand what they are reading. They want to learn the content, basically. Especially early career researchers have a very strong impetus in learning themselves and not just correcting other people's work and make it better. So I think that would slow down because it still has to go through a brain and be understood and so on. But I think 50% should be easily possible. And suddenly all of our volume problems are gone.
Well, the remark I said in my presentation, was referring to the fact that AI can actually reduce the time to identify reviewers by about 70%. That was a claim that was published by Springer Nature. It's a 2020 report, 2025 blog report in Springer Nature. But the problem is getting data and having some more rigorous measure and metrics by which we measure the KPI. We don't have enough data now to assess the increase in productivity. Yeah, and then I agree about the fact that as Sven was mentioning before, reviewers don't just want to correct it, but they want to learn the content. So that's something that can't be replaced. But surely, the things that can be automated is the work that is before the peer review actually starts working on a paper. So the selection and the filters, the filtering out of the bad articles, that can be automated.
So there were a lot of questions or comments around specific tools. And I think that, in a lot of ways, um, there, we've had a lot of experience over the years now with things like plagiarism checking, which is a helpful tool. But the tools that have been built, not necessarily for evaluating the content and then providing some sort of score or information about the content itself, but tools that are actually assisting in peer review. I'm not sure that we've had much of an opportunity to see many of those yet, because I think a lot of them aren't yet developed, or they're in early stages. Is there anything that you've seen that either is actually available now, or that you had a glimpse of that you think is particularly useful, or has some potential?
I think the problem is it depends, right? It depends on the discipline in many cases. So many of them have been developed out of a specific, from a specific perspective for a specific discipline. So I think, Tony, it's a great idea. And what we try to do with this list of tools is only a starting point. What I would really like to do is do a kind of half-day seminar where people, like a hackathon, basically, where these tools get an article and you can real-time compare in a conference or something like that, maybe at ALPSP or at Frankfurt Book Fair or whatever. You can basically compare these 15 tools as they work. I think that would be really interesting and important, because other than that, I can't imagine, and that's where we kind of failed an evaluation framework against which this makes sense to do. Because what, for example, I guess Wiley does in Research Exchange and in other systems is not completely open, but is linked to other components in that workflow, while other tools are standalone features. So like breaking those out would be really interesting, I think, and would be really interesting to see how fast they are, what they pick up, how they interact with like the UX, how they interact with the reviewer and so on. So maybe that's a great idea to do for Frankfurt, and spend half a day on a hackathon like this.
Maybe I would just like to add, with regards to the tools available, the statement from the World Association of Medical Editors that states, and this is very important for small publishers, that editors need appropriate tools which should be made available regardless of the ability to pay for them. So I think discussing AI is great, but it does still have costs to ensure that the system that you bring into your system is actually feasible and can be supported economically. So it's, as I said, we dream big, we love what AI does, but I still think we have to keep our feet on the ground. But I like your hackathon. It's definitely interesting. It's looking forward to the results.
Fabio, when we were meeting about this webinar, we had a couple of conversations where you really had a lot of, I would say, maybe not futuristic ideas, but a lot of thought around where AI is going, and how in the future, how it might radically alter how we do peer review. And maybe you could share some of that, because it was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, the problem with implementing reliable tools for peer review is a widespread common issue in all disciplines and human activities. The fact that artificial intelligence is still not intelligent, and the fact that artificial intelligence doesn't have a real understanding of the world the same way humans do. They are stochastic parrots. They are next token predictors. They are just statistical correlators of sequences. Now, the problem is that this was true, and this still true, I mean, but we are experiencing an empirical demonstration of the fact that the higher the size of the models, the higher the corpus of the data of the training set, the higher the interaction levels of these large language models, and the higher is the likelihood that statistical correlations transforms themselves into latent causal relationships and structural relationships. So what we call an operational understanding with the world. Operational understanding without intentionality and without consciousness. It is functional. It's not ontological. But that's why we are noticing that they are investing in larger and larger supercomputers with atomic nuclear stations because they use so much electricity and they require so much water to be cooled down. So size matters. The neural scaling laws are empirically demonstrating this transformation, this pivotal shift from statistics to cognition. Now, the problem is that this element is still quite debatable. The scientific community is divided. There are a lot of engineers and mathematicians who don't believe that operational understanding can arise bottom up. They still believe that operational understanding is in control of human beings and require a top-down approach. There are some other scientists who actually believe that operational understanding can emerge as an emergent phenomenon of neural network, of the complexity of neural networks. So my guess is that we will know soon enough who is right here. And once that, we are beginning to see sparks of AGI. These systems are beginning to behave functionally as if they understand things, okay? They solve, novel problems. I know that Apple has published an article that was quite debated in terms of rigorous methodology. There are some methodological flaws. We can discuss about it. But probably people who have used or are using AI intensively, as I am, are noticing that these models become more and more, they actually show more and more understanding of things. And Geoffrey Hinton agrees with me. His Nobel Prize. If you go and watch his videos, he'll tell you even about consciousness, which is of course, a diverse form of consciousness. But we assume that machines don't think, and that the thinking is only a property of human beings, but we actually don't know for sure. Exactly like for consciousness and intentionality, we don't have a model that measures deterministically consciousness and intentionality. So once that we have AGI, and that could happen soon, maybe, if the neural scaling laws are, generating the operational understandings that is necessary for machine to function as humans, then in this case, peer review process can be revolutionized, and even the entire research activity can be delegated entirely to an AGI.
So in a way, it sounds almost maybe not opposite, but the idea today where we're talking about, we want to have a researcher taking responsibility for their review, that it almost sounds like that becomes antiquated or a quaint concept. In the last couple of minutes, Sven or Lucia, do you have any response or any
I think Tony, I mean, we have discussed this a little bit in a box, right? AI and peer review. If we open the box again, I was on a panel like this a few weeks ago where I understood or was reminded or whatever, again, after several years, that peer review as a concept is not as old, divine, and central, hasn't always been in academic publishing as we believe, right? So I think Nature introduced peer review in the late 1960s only. So it sounds a little bit like this is all ages old, and it has to be exactly the way how we conduct it today. I think taking that as a stage on which we can discuss, well, maybe there is a more appropriate way of doing things today, and maybe there are certain components that we don't need anymore as they have been. We can take review processes apart more or less, automate some of them, humanize or keep others human. As I think Fabio also mentioned, I mean, we will need to be much more flexible, it seems, in responding to the developments of technology if we don't want to be completely outdated and wasteful with human intelligence on stuff that machines can probably do better, right?
Yeah, I do want to say that, the philosophical transactions of the Royal Society, one of the primary purposes of that in the 1600s was to run the ideas by other experts. So I mean, even though maybe the mechanics of peer review might be fairly new, the idea of peer review is hundreds of years old.
Yeah, but I mean, also we are not eliminating conferences and publishing altogether, right? We are just talking about a relatively small component that we all got used to, but that might be under pressure now and replaced by something else.
Yeah. Lucia, any last remarks to close us out?
No, I think it's exciting. I mean, I'm sorry, but I still remember when open access was very, very controversial. So I can imagine the changes from now on, because peer review is something that we would never question. We never thought that it would change. And I think I agree to some extent that we will see a lot of change in the future. And AI is going to drive a lot of that change, whether we like it or not. So we have to probably ride the wave and stay on top of it as much as we can, because it is very difficult. And whenever I speak to Fabio, I end up with a headache, and he knows that, because I don't understand all he says, because it is a complex topic. It is a complex topic. But I think it's been a fantastic start to the future in a way, It's a lot to see. Looking forward to whatever is coming next.
Well, I want to thank you all for participating in this panel. I want to thank the remaining participants. More than half of you stuck to the end, so that was great. And I look forward to our next best practice webinar. Again, thank you, panel, for your insight and your input. And
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and good